Our responsibilities is to provide the protection for refugees that we are legally obliged to. And of course our moral responsibilities is to recognize that refugees are people. They are not numbers, they are not commodities that we can trade off and sort of pay other countries to take care of. We have also a moral obligation and responsibility to treat people with humanity and dignity, and to recognize that Europe collectively has to play its fair share in the world crisis as we have it, with 60 million people displaced, more than 20 million of them being refugees. I think debates differ in different countries based on perceptions, not based on facts. And what we are seeing is, and that has been quite astounding, I must say, that in countries that are not receiving a lot of refugees, that are not getting huge numbers of asylum claims, are very often on the forefront of being very negative towards accepting refugees. At the same time, of course, we are seeing in some of the countries that have received huge numbers of refugees, we're seeing political perceptions now of saying we cannot manage. And I think what we need to see and further in a European context, both individual EU countries but also in a collective EU environment, is for those countries to get out of that we cannot manage box, to recognize that the numbers that are coming are still not huge in a global perspective, and that of course we can manage these numbers. I think if we discuss the prospect of, or the need for achieving a common European asylum approach and policy, I'm concerned that for the moment, given the differing of opinions around European capitals, and particularly some very, very negative EU capitals, that is unlikely to succeed. And if we make that the solemn goal, that we have to be united around these and united in meeting our obligations towards refugees around the world, then it will be a race to the bottom, because there are countries within the EU that simply sits and says no, 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 no. So my suggestion is for the immediate time is not to allow these naysayers to dictate this race to the bottom, but really to try and form coalitions of countries that want to be part of solving problems in a dignified and rights-based manner, and let them take the lead, and let the others be the ones that will be shamed by history. But I do think that we need to move forward, even if it's not with all 28 member states. But that could then also be, and it needs to be, together with coalitions of countries outside the EU. And there are other partners that we can work with in this respect. And there's a new partner on the scene since not that long, namely since the change of government in Canada. That you have seen a relatively small country, I mean in terms of population, that has shown extraordinary positive initiatives with respect to receiving and protecting refugees. Well, of course we should cooperate with our neighbors, that's self-understood, but we should not do it in a way where we trade off refugees as part of that cooperation, and we say we'll sign you some checks and then you will take care of refugees no matter the conditions in your countries. And some of these cooperations with some countries that we are seeing are deeply questionable. These are not countries that are known for respecting human rights, but for the exact opposite, for violating human rights with utter impunity. I mean, to suggest that we are even entering into cooperation with a country like Sudan, a country that has as a precedent a person who is indicted for war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide, is simply absurd. It's not absurd that we want to improve the protection of people, including in these countries and including migrants and refugees, but to suggest that that can be done through financial support and other support to these countries is in question. And of course, in many of these countries, Egypt is included, Ethiopia is included, you are having a situation where there's no free press, where whistleblowers and dissenters and opposition are being locked up. So when things go wrong, there will hardly be anyone to report on it in these countries. So while we are saying, yes, we need to work, including with bad countries, it needs to be done in an exceptionally careful manner, and it needs to always be done not for the purpose of only keeping people away from Europe, but for the purpose of advancing protection and rights.